Hey everybody, Jam Creates here. Doing another driving home video. Today was my first day back at work after all the events of the past week and a half. I want to thank you guys again for being so patient with me, not being around last week. Again, if you didn't hear, if you missed out, if you didn't watch my last video, I had a death in the family, and it hit the entire family very hard, and so I needed some time to help out. When family needs your help, that's what you do, right? Or at least that's what you should do. So anyway, I just want to thank everybody for all the well wishes I received on Twitter. I got some really nice well wishes from some of the creators over at Alterna, including Peter Cimetti, which was nice. And some of my friends, some of you guys reached out to me as well. And it was just nice to get some nice words from some people. And absolutely, I want to reach out to you guys and let you know the people who were cool to me. A lot of the creators at Alterna, a lot of the people you see commenting on my videos, they're all cool people. And I also want to give a special shout out to Critias, who you might know. He's running the Detective Dead Indiegogo, which I believe is still in demand. So if you can, go back him. The book looks good, first of all, and that's the main thing. I'm not going to tell you to just back somebody just because they were cool to me. His book looks really good. The artist he got is doing fantastic work, and he's just a cool dude. And I was chatting with him on DMs on Twitter, and he's a cool guy. So anyway, on to the video at hand. I don't want to spend too much time talking about that stuff, but in case you didn't know, I had a death in the family, then a car accident, and I think I sprained my finger. Not in the car accident, actually, like the next day, or a couple days later, whatever it was. So anyway, it's been a really rotten week and a half or so, and even longer than that, honestly, if I'm being truthful. There was a lot of stuff going on. So anyway, into the fun. Let's get to the fun. And what's the fun? The fun is making videos for you guys. So I'm back in the swing. I'm back in the saddle again. Yeah, don't worry. I will not continue to sing. That's just not something I could see myself doing too much of on my channel. So anyway, video starts now. Somebody timestamp it in the comments so that people can just get to the meat of the conversation here. What I wanted to talk about is something that popped into my head, and there's a whole backstory of why I've been thinking about this, which I will skip for now, because I've talked a little bit about it in the past. It has to do with Fish Stick Force, Fish Stick Squad, whatever we're going to call it. Anyway, I started thinking about, as I've been messing around with this whole thing and thinking about ideas, I'm thinking about how it really seems to be true that comic books, and not just, not just the Indiegogo crowd, the Comicsgate crowd who have been trying to, create books and make money and all that, but just comic books in general, the entire industry seems to have, really, really underserved the youth market. And when I say the youth market, I don't mean, teenagers, because obviously, teenagers like the blood and guts and the violence and all that stuff, which they're not really getting a lot of from the mainstream comics anyway. But kids, where's the stuff for the kids? And I feel like it seems to be a lot of the, there are some all ages stuff out there. Now, I'm not going to try and say that stuff doesn't exist, because there is stuff out there. Specifically, Alterna Comics does a real good job of trying to put out all ages books. I know Peter himself has said that he's always on the lookout for good all ages books because they're hard to find. And it's funny because a lot of the stuff that you do see is if you do see any of it, it's licensed stuff from really old licenses that, let's be honest, kids don't really care about. Like things like Rainbow Bright and stuff like that, like they don't even know what that is. Like kids don't care. That stuff means nothing to them. The Ninja Turtles are still marketable because they keep getting rebooted with new animated series and even new movies and stuff. So they're out there for kids. But there's not a lot of other stuff. Like, where are the new properties that are becoming the new Ninja Turtles? You know what I mean? Like, Ninja Turtles, you know, when you go back, or even further back, when I was a kid, I read G.I. Joe comics, I read Transformers comics. I mean, hell, when I bought a He-Man figure, it came packaged with a mini comic. It was almost like I was, you know, as a kid, as a young boy, I was basically like programmed to want to read comic books. Like, it was all there for me. G.I. Joe, Transformers. Like I said, a He-Man figure. When I bought a new He-Man figure because I liked the TV show, I got a comic book packed in with the figure. Like, that's awesome. I mean, that was like, you know, like comic books were everywhere when I was a kid. And, you know, a lot of the properties that I was into, you could get comic books for. And I did because, let's be honest, you know, you watch every episode of G.I. Joe, you just want more. If you're that into it, you want more. So then you start buying the comic books. And the comic books were written at a higher level than even the TV show was, really. I mean, they were written, you know, I might have been 8 or 9 years old, or 10 years old, whatever, but those books weren't written for a 9 or 10-year-old. They were written, like, you know, at an older age range, but I still could follow everything. And they were somewhat aspirational for me as a little kid, you know? And I think, you know, I was older when Ninja Turtles came around. I still loved them. I absolutely fell in love with the Ninja Turtles and was obsessed with them. And I was a little bit older at the time than I was when G.I. Joe and Transformers were around. And again, the comic book was not written for kids. I mean, the comic book was pretty dark, honestly. And pretty violent, but they also were smart enough to put out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Adventures, which was basically just based on the cartoon. And I feel like there was stuff out there, like, and I just don't see that. And you know, I'm not seeing it. The only properties I'm seeing that are aimed at kids are like the Disney books. You know, there's some Disney books. There's like DuckTales and stuff like that. There's the license to Disney books, which, you know, maybe will get some kids to read. I don't know. You know, those things don't seem to really holding the attention, you know, of a generation the way they did back in the day. You know, when DuckTales first came out, everybody loved DuckTales. DuckTales, Tailspin, Rescue Rangers, that stuff was everywhere and everybody loved it. You know, nowadays, it doesn't really seem like the reboot's doing that, you know? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know, you know. I mean, I'm into, you're going to tell me there's new Darkwing Duck coming, I'm going to be into it, but, like, as long as it's good, you know. But everything else seems to be, like, little kid stuff, and, of course, My Little Pony, which, I mean, let's be honest, the My Little Pony thing, I don't even know how to begin to describe and explain that entire thing, the whole brony situation. I don't know. I'm not even going to attempt it. If you want someone to dive deep into brony culture and all that, you're going to have to find someone else. That I am not the guy for that. But, yeah, that one's successful. And it's funny because it's successful with a different crowd than what it was probably meant to be successful for, but whatever. But where's the stuff for the young boys? Where's the stuff for the kids who are going to grow up and read comic books as they get older? Where's the stuff that's going to get kids into reading comics so that as they get older, they transition into reading the other stuff, which I would have said, you know, they transition into reading Spider-Man or X-Men or whatever. But honestly, like, those books have been so bad. The Marvel stuff has been so terrible for so long now that I don't even know if that is the transition. I mean, honestly, I think the transition now is Where do we get them to transition from to reading indie books, like cool indie books, you know, Comicscape books, other independent books? Like, where do we get them in, you know, to read that stuff, so that they so that they look at comic books as a valid medium and form of entertainment? People always want to bitch, moan, and complain about how there's too many, you know, 30-year-old, 40-year-old white men are the only ones buying these comics. Well, they're the only ones buying comics in general. And if you want to change that, you got to get the kids. You got to give them something interesting to read. Kids don't want to read a diatribe on the wage gap. That's not interesting to a kid. A kid wants to see people with cool powers doing cool things. If I'm going to read a book about ninjas, I want to see them fighting with swords and throwing ninja stars and, you know, doing crazy acrobatics. That's what I want to see. If I want to read a comic book about superheroes, I want to see them doing heroic stuff. And this is, I think, where a lot of people seem to be failing. And so it's put me in a weird place, you know, as I was talking to my wife, trying to decide, you know, what if I am going to go forward with this whole Fish Stick Squad thing. I mean, clearly it's meant to be an all-ages book. But what even is all ages nowadays? Because when I was a kid, all ages meant guys could run around with guns and shoot lasers at each other. Okay, as long as nobody got hit, we were all good. You know, when you watch G.I. Joe, nobody ever got shot. Planes got blown up, tanks got blown up, things exploded, but no one was ever hurt. Guys would get their bell rung, but that would be about it. And it was fine, because it was adventure and it was fun. And as a kid, you didn't even care. You didn't even, like, it didn't matter to you. Like, you would, as a kid, as you started to get older, you wanted to be all edgy and be like, how come nobody dies in G.I. Joe? But that's just, you know, a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid being a teenager. Like, you want to be all edgy. I mean, hell, look at my books that I made when I was at that age. When I do, like, my Jam Comics Classics things, there's always blood in them. There's always violence in them. Because as a kid, like, that's what you're into. And you wonder, like, why don't the other stuff that they're giving you have that? You know, and so that's just a natural reaction, is to go too far the other way. If you hear the wind blowing, it's because I'm riding in a borrowed car, and it is an old car. And the seal on the window is not that great, because my other car was destroyed in a car wreck. Thankfully, everybody was okay. But, yeah. So, I don't know how if you're going to pick up that wind sound as I'm driving, I'm sorry for it. It's just going to be, it is what it is. So anyway, you know, I'm thinking to myself, like, well, I think it would be cool if, like, you know, some of them had swords and some of them, like, maybe I give them blasters. Like, can I even do that anymore? Is that allowed? Like, it's such a weird situation, you know, and I'm trying specifically, like, when I'm coming up with these ideas, I'm trying to not limit myself based on what I think the TV censors would do to me if it was turned into a cartoon, which I do think that there's potential there, but let's be honest, I mean, you know, nothing has happened yet. Nothing's even made yet. It's funny because it makes me wonder, like, you know, I started wondering, like, where are all the action-adventure kids stuff? And I feel like there's not a lot of it. And especially not a lot of it in comic book form. Like, yeah, you still get your Ninja Turtle cartoon reboots, you know, every couple of years on Nickelodeon. You get your Kung Fu Panda stuff and things like that. But where's the G.I. Joes? And I know you get your Transformer reboots here and there. And again, those are robots, so it's easy to do. And I'm okay with, you know, the TV version of, like, the Ninja Turtles. What did they do? They made the Foot Clan, instead of just being ninjas, they made them robots. That way the Turtles could destroy them in every episode, and it wasn't them killing people. You know, it's fine. I get it. You know, Batman the Animated Series, there was a long time where you couldn't show him actually punching someone because they thought that was too imitatable. So, like, the censors would allow them to show a kick, but not a punch. And it was like all these weird regulations. But where in the comic book world, like, where does that fit? Where's the line for violence in an all ages book? You know, I really would love to know. Like, I would love to talk to someone who publishes all ages books. Like, if I could have a one-on-one with Peter Simeti from Alterna, I would ask him, like, what does he think? Because he publishes all ages books, and he's on the lookout for all ages books. What does he think is the line between an all ages and, let's say, like a teen book? You know, could there be, like, guns in an all ages book as long as no one's actually getting hurt? Like, as long as no one's getting shot, can you do guns? Like, it's a weird thing, and I would love to get other people's opinions on, what do you think? Like, is this the reason why that we don't have a lot of this stuff anymore? Because people are so afraid to do the wrong thing that they'd rather just not do it at all? And so the only comic books you get are either, like, adult comic books, or if it is an all ages book, it's usually a comedy book, and if it's not, then it's like a you know, it's basically like a storybook. That's why I'm really interested to see what Doug TenNapel's Bigfoot Bill comes out like. I mean, I know people are starting to get them now, and I backed it, so I'll definitely be doing videos on it, and I'll definitely be doing a review of it. But I am assuming that that book will be an all-ages book. I think everything that he's said about it makes me think it will be appropriate for all ages. And I'd like to see, like, what kind of... because it is an action-adventure book. I'd like to see what the level of violence that he has in there is. I mean, I know he's dealing with superpowers and other things, but I'm curious because there is some semblance of real-world elements to it. So I'm curious, will there be guns? Will there be shooting? Will anyone get hurt? Will there be... you know, I'm very interested to see what that book is. Because I do, like I said, I do think that could be a good guideline of where to go. So anyway, let me know if you know of any good examples of all ages books that aren't just comedy books or, you know, based on licensed properties that are really for, like, little kids. You know, if you see a PJ Masks comic book out there, that's not really doing me any good, because that's meant for preschoolers. So anyway, let me know what you think of this video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're happy to see me back, give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel, subscribe, please. That certainly would help. We've been growing, and obviously we stagnated. The channel stagnated while I wasn't putting out any content, which of course makes sense. But I'd like to see it start growing again. We're over 130. I'd love to get to 140 and eventually 150 and so on and so forth. You know, at some point I would love to be able to monetize the channel just because it would allow me to do more. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys soon. And that's, you know, follow me on Twitter at jam_creates. I'm on Instagram. I'm posting stuff on there. I post art on there. I post pictures of my dog. So anyway, I will talk to you guys soon, and peace out.